My name is Silas Kelran, and I fix computers for a living. Not the glamorous kind of computer work you see in movies, no hacking into government databases or stopping cyber terrorists. I troubleshoot network issues for mid-sized companies in Cleveland, Ohio. I crawl under desks, untangle cables, and explain to middle managers why their password can't be password 123. It's honest work that pays the mortgage on our 3-bedroom colonial in Lakewood. The text arrived at 7:43 p.m. on a Tuesday, right as I was debugging a server configuration for a dental practice downtown. I'm staying at my sister's tonight. Don't wait up. Talia had been pulling these sister visits more frequently lately. Mira lived in a converted loft in Tremont, about 20 minutes south. The two sisters had always been close, but recently it seemed like every minor disagreement between Talia and me required an overnight therapy session with Mira. I stared at the message on my phone screen. Something about it felt different this time. Maybe it was the period at the end. Talia usually texted in fragments, no punctuation. Maybe it was the timing. Or maybe it was the accumulation of small things that had been nagging at me for months. The late nights at her marketing firm, the new perfume I didn't recognize, the way she'd started taking her phone into the bathroom, the credit card charges for restaurants I'd never been to. If suspicion was a sport, I'd medal. Bronze, probably. But still. Instead of heading home to our empty house, I made a decision that would unravel everything. I texted Mira directly. Talia says she's coming over tonight. Mind if I swing by? Been meaning to return that book you lent me. The response came back faster than it should have. What book? And Talia isn't here. I sat in my Honda Civic in the dental office parking lot, engine running, staring at those 8 words. My wife had just lied to me. Not a little white lie about forgetting to pick up milk. A calculated, premeditated lie about where she was spending the night. 20 minutes later, I was knocking on Mira's apartment door. Mira Kelran, well, Mira Santos now, though she'd kept her maiden name professionally, opened the door wearing yoga pants and an oversized Cleveland Browns sweatshirt. At 36, she was 3 years younger than Talia, with the same dark hair but a softer face. Where Talia had sharp angles and aggressive ambition, Mira had curves and calm competence. She worked as a nurse at Metro Health, pulling 12-hour shifts and somehow still finding energy to volunteer at a free clinic on weekends. Silas. She stepped aside to let me in. I figured you'd be coming by. Her apartment smelled like jasmine tea and something baking. The living room was small but warm, with exposed brick walls and plants everywhere. It was the kind of space that felt lived in and loved, unlike our house, which increasingly felt like a showroom for Talia's Pinterest boards. Where is she? I asked. Mira gestured toward her small dining table. 2 cups of tea were already waiting. She'd been expecting this conversation. Sit down, Silas, please. I remained standing. Just tell me where my wife is. She's with Aaron Price, her co-worker. They're at the Marriott downtown. Mira's voice was steady, clinical, the way she probably delivered bad news to families at the hospital. The name hit me like a slap. Aaron Price. I'd heard it before, usually in the context of Talia's complaints about work. Aaron, who always got the good accounts. Aaron, who brown-nosed the partners. Aaron, who drove that ridiculous BMW and wore cologne that probably cost more than my monthly car payment. How long? I asked. 6 months, maybe longer. Mira picked up her phone from the table. I have proof. She unlocked the screen and slid it across to me. The messaging app was open, showing a conversation between 2 contacts, T and A. I scrolled up and up and up. The messages went back to February. It was now August. 6 months of lies documented in digital ink. But these weren't passionate love letters. They read like operational planning, meeting times, location confirmations, code words for different hotels, a schedule that aligned perfectly with every late meeting and client dinner Talia had mentioned over the past half year. Tuesday 6 p.m., usual place. Booked under your name. Can't make Thursday. Silas is working from home. Mira's covering for me this weekend. 2 nights possible. That last message made me look up at Mira. She was watching me with sad, tired eyes. You've been covering for her? She asked me to be her alibi. Said you two were having problems and she needed space to think. Mira wrapped her hands around her teacup. I believed her at first. I thought maybe some time apart would help you both figure things out. When did you realize it wasn't about space? When she asked me to lie about specific dates. When she started using my address for hotel confirmations, so the charges wouldn't show up on your shared credit card. When she had me call you that night in June to confirm she was here while she was actually in Columbus with him for a conference that didn't exist. I remembered that call. Mira had sounded strange, stilted. I'd assumed she was tired from a long shift. I kept scrolling through the messages. The operational details were impressive in their thoroughness. They'd used a messaging app that automatically deleted conversations after 24 hours. They'd created fake contact names in their phones. They'd established protocols for location spoofing that would make their phones appear to be in places they weren't. This wasn't an affair. It was a covert operation. How did you get these? I asked. Talia asked me to set up the app on her phone. She's not exactly tech-savvy. Mira almost smiled. She didn't realize the app syncs across devices when you're logged into the same account. I've been seeing every message for 3 months. Why didn't you tell me sooner? Because I kept hoping she'd end it. Because I thought maybe you were better off not knowing. Because she's my sister and I didn't want to be the one to destroy your marriage. Mira leaned forward. But then I saw the messages from last week. She reached for her phone and scrolled to a more recent conversation. He's getting suspicious. We need to be more careful. Maybe it's time to just tell him. Get it over with. Not yet. I need to secure the custody arrangement first. And the house. Your lawyer thinks the fertility story will work? As long as you don't say anything to contradict it. The medical records show I've been trying to get pregnant for 2 years. If Silas was the problem all along, it strengthens my position. I read that exchange 3 times before the implications sank in. Talia had been telling people I was infertile. She'd been building a narrative that painted me as the reason we didn't have children, when the truth was we'd agreed to wait until her career was more established. But there was something else in those messages that made my chest tight with a different kind of anger. What custody arrangement? I asked. Mira's face went pale. Silas. What custody arrangement, Mira? She was quiet for a long moment. Then she got up and walked to her kitchen counter, where a manila folder sat next to her purse. Talia is pregnant, she said quietly. 8 weeks. The folder hit the table with a soft thud. Inside were printouts of medical records, ultrasound images, and what looked like legal documents. She's been seeing a lawyer. She plans to file for divorce and claim you're an unfit father due to your fertility-related depression and anger issues. She's been documenting incidents that never happened, building a case that you've become unstable and potentially dangerous. I stared at the ultrasound image. A tiny gray blob that was supposed to be my child. Except according to the timeline in these messages, it might not be. Is it mine? I don't know. The timing. Mira trailed off. I did the math. 8 weeks ago would have been mid-June. I remembered that week clearly, because Talia had been particularly distant, claiming she was stressed about a big presentation. We hadn't been intimate in almost a month at that point. She's been taking birth control, I said, remembering the pills I'd seen in her purse. I saw the prescription bottle last month. Those are prenatal vitamins in an old prescription bottle. She's been pretending to prevent pregnancy while actively trying to conceive. With him. The room felt like it was tilting. My wife was pregnant with another man's child, planning to divorce me, take our house, and paint me as an unstable husband to ensure I'd have minimal custody rights to a child that wasn't even mine. There's more. Mira said softly. I wasn't sure I could handle more, but I nodded. Aaron works for Meridian Defense Systems. They're a government contractor. He has security clearance. She paused. Talia has been asking you a lot of questions about your old job lately, hasn't she? She was right. Over the past few months, Talia had shown unusual interest in my previous work. Before I became an IT consultant, I'd spent 5 years doing network security for a defense contractor in Akron. Nothing glamorous or highly classified, but I'd had clearance and access to some sensitive systems. She's been copying files from your home computer, Mira continued. Aaron's been helping her. They think there might be something valuable in your old work files. I don't keep classified materials at home. That would be illegal, yes. But they don't know that. Aaron convinced her that your old security protocols and contact lists could be worth something to the right buyer. I sat back in my chair, trying to process everything. My wife was cheating on me, pregnant with her lover's child, planning to frame me as an unfit husband, steal my house, and potentially sell information she thought I had to foreign agents. Why are you telling me this now? I asked. Mira was quiet for a long moment. Because she asked me to testify on her behalf. She wants me to confirm that you've been acting erratically, that I've been worried about her safety. She wants me to lie under oath to help her take everything from you. And I realized that my sister isn't the person I thought she was. The Talia I grew up with wouldn't destroy an innocent person's life for money and convenience. Mira met my eyes. You've been good to her, Silas. You've been good to both of us. You don't deserve this. I looked down at the phone again, at months of calculated betrayal laid out in neat digital rows. My wife had turned our marriage into a long con, and I'd been the mark. What do I do now? That depends, Mira said. How badly do you want to win? I didn't sleep that night. Instead, I sat at my kitchen table with my laptop open, going through 7 years of digital breadcrumbs, bank statements, credit card records, phone bills, email accounts, all the mundane data that makes up a modern marriage. By dawn, I had a clearer picture of just how thoroughly I'd been played. The affair hadn't started 6 months ago. It had started almost 2 years ago, right around the time Talia got promoted to senior marketing manager and started working more closely with Aaron's team. The early stages had been careful. Coffee meetings that looked professional, late dinners that could be explained as client entertainment. But I could see the pattern now. Hotel charges on nights when Talia claimed to be at work conferences, restaurant bills for two at places she'd never mentioned visiting, gas station purchases in suburbs where neither of us had any reason to be. My phone buzzed at 6:47 a.m., a text from Talia. Running errands with Mira this morning, home around noon. Can we talk tonight? I stared at the message. She was still lying, even now. Mira was at the hospital, starting a 12-hour shift. I knew because she'd texted me her schedule the night before, along with a promise to help me figure out my next move. Instead of responding to Talia, I called in sick to work and drove to downtown Cleveland. Aaron Price worked for Meridian Defense Systems in a glass tower near the lake. I'd looked up the company after leaving Mira's apartment. They specialized in cybersecurity consulting for government agencies, exactly the kind of work that required security clearances and background checks. I parked across the street and waited. At 8:15 a.m., a silver BMW pulled into the parking garage. I'd seen that car before, parked outside the coffee shop where Talia sometimes met clients. At the time, I'd thought it was a coincidence. Aaron Price looked exactly like I'd expected. Tall, athletic build, expensive suit, the kind of confident stride that suggested he'd never had to crawl under a desk to fix someone else's mistakes. He was handsome in a generic way, the kind of face you'd see in a stock photo for a successful businessman. I followed him into the building lobby, staying far enough back to avoid suspicion. He badged through security and headed for the elevators. I watched the floor indicator, 17th floor. Can I help you? The security guard was looking at me expectantly. "Just waiting for someone," I said, and walked back outside. From my car, I called the main number for Meridian Defense Systems. "Good morning, Meridian Defense. How may I direct your call?" "Hi, I'm trying to reach Aaron Price. I believe he's in your cybersecurity division." "One moment, please." The hold music was generic jazz. After 30 seconds, a different voice came on the line. "This is Jennifer in HR. I understand you're trying to reach Mr. Price." "That's right. I'm calling about a potential security concern involving one of your employees." There was a pause. "I'm sorry. What kind of security concern?" "The kind that involves unauthorized access to classified materials and potential compromise of security clearances. I think someone should hear what I have to say." "Sir, I'm going to need you to hold while I transfer you to our security department." 20 minutes later, I was sitting in a conference room on the 15th floor of the Meridian building, talking to a man named Detective Williams, who worked for their internal security division. He was former FBI, according to the certificates on his wall, with the kind of serious demeanor that suggested he'd heard every possible story about cheating spouses and workplace drama. "Let me make sure I understand this correctly," he said, reviewing the notes he'd taken. "You believe Aaron Price is involved in an inappropriate relationship with your wife, and that this relationship may have compromised his security clearance?" "I know he's involved with my wife. I have documentation." I slid printouts of the messages across the table. "What I'm concerned about is whether he's encouraged her to access materials from my previous employment." Detective Williams reviewed the messages carefully. His expression didn't change, but I noticed he spent extra time on the exchanges about my old work files. "What was your previous employment, Mr. Kelran?" "Network security for Blackstone Defense in Akron. I had secret clearance for 5 years, until 2019. "And you believe your wife may have accessed materials from that employment?" "I know she's been copying files from my home computer. Whether those files contain anything sensitive is another question." Williams made more notes. "Mr. Kelran, I have to ask, are you reporting this out of genuine security concerns, or because you're angry about your wife's affair?" It was a fair question. "Both," I said. "But the security concern is real. Aaron Price has clearance, and he's been involved with someone who's actively trying to access potentially classified materials. Even if those materials turn out to be harmless, the attempt itself is a violation." Williams nodded. "We'll need to investigate this thoroughly. That means interviewing Mr. Price, reviewing his recent activities, and potentially suspending his clearance pending the outcome." "How long does that process take?" "Depends on what we find. But I can tell you that any employee whose clearance is suspended will be placed on administrative leave immediately. We don't take these matters lightly." I left the Meridian building feeling like I'd fired the first shot in a war I hadn't wanted to fight. But Talia had made the choice to turn our marriage into a battlefield. I was just choosing my weapons. My next stop was a law office in Shaker Heights. Margaret Velasquez had been recommended by a colleague whose own divorce had been particularly nasty. She was in her 50s, with gray hair pulled back in a severe bun and the kind of direct gaze that suggested she'd seen every possible variation of human betrayal. "Mr. Kelran," she said, gesturing to a chair across from her desk, "I understand you need representation for a divorce proceeding." "Not exactly. I need representation to prevent a divorce proceeding, or at least to make sure I'm not destroyed by one." I laid out everything I'd learned: the affair, the pregnancy, the planned custody battle, the false narrative about my mental state, the attempts to access my work files. Ms. Velasquez listened without interruption, occasionally making notes on a legal pad. When I finished, she leaned back in her chair. "This is more complex than a typical infidelity case," she said. "Your wife appears to be building a comprehensive strategy to maximize her position in a divorce settlement. The pregnancy complicates things significantly. Even if the child isn't mine? Paternity can be established, but timing will be crucial. If she files for divorce before we can contest paternity, you could be on the hook for child support, regardless of biological parentage." What are my options? We need to move fast and move smart. First, we document everything: the affair, the lies, the attempts to access your work materials. Second, we secure your assets and protect your reputation. Third, we get ahead of her narrative. Ms. Velasquez pulled out a thick folder and began extracting documents. I'm going to need you to sign several things today. A retainer agreement, obviously, but also authorizations for private investigators, forensic accountants, and digital forensics specialists. If we're going to fight this, we're going to fight it properly. How much is this going to cost? Less than losing your house, your savings, and your reputation, but not cheap. She named a figure that made me wince. However, if your wife has been as careless as you suggest, we may be able to recover costs as part of the settlement. I signed the papers, all of them. One more thing, Ms. Velasquez said as I prepared to leave. Don't confront your wife directly about any of this. Don't let her know you're aware of her plans. The element of surprise is the only advantage we have right now. What if she tries to escalate things? What if she starts making accusations? Then we'll be ready for her. But Silas, can I call you Silas? You need to be prepared for this to get ugly. Your wife has been planning this for months. She's not going to surrender easily. I drove home through the late morning traffic, thinking about everything that had changed in the past 12 hours. Yesterday, I'd been a husband with suspicions about his wife's fidelity. Today, I was a man at war, with lawyers and private investigators and federal security officials as my allies. My phone buzzed with another text from Talia. Change of plans. Staying with Mira another night. She's going through a rough patch. Love you. I almost laughed. Even now, she couldn't stop lying. Mira was working a double shift and wouldn't be home until tomorrow morning. But this time, I knew exactly where my wife really was. And more importantly, I knew what I was going to do about it. I texted back, "No problem. Take care of your sister. See you tomorrow." Then I called Ms. Velasquez's office and left a message. "It's Silas Kelran. She's staying at the hotel again tonight. Have your investigator ready." The war was officially beginning. The photographs arrived by email at 6:23 a.m. while I was drinking coffee and pretending to read the news. High-resolution images of Talia and Aaron entering the Marriott downtown, timestamp clearly visible. More photos of them at dinner, holding hands across the table at an expensive restaurant I couldn't afford. A final shot of them kissing in the hotel parking garage, her wedding ring clearly visible on the hand pressed against his chest. My phone rang 30 seconds later. "Mr. Kelran, this is Detective Williams from Meridian Defense. We need to schedule a follow-up interview. Some things have come to light regarding Mr. Price that require immediate attention." "What kind of things?" "The kind that result in security clearances being revoked and administrative leave being imposed. Can you be here at 10 a.m.? I could. The second meeting at Meridian was different from the first. This time there were 3 people in the conference room: Detective Williams, a woman introduced as Ms. Chen from corporate security, and a man in a federal agent's uniform whose badge identified him as Homeland Security. "Mr. Kelran," Agent Rodriguez began, "your report yesterday triggered a comprehensive review of Mr. Price's recent activities. What we found was concerning enough to involve federal investigators." He slid a folder across the table. Inside were printouts of network access logs, email records, and what looked like financial documents. Over the past 6 months, Mr. Price has accessed classified databases outside of normal business hours on 17 occasions. He's also made unauthorized copies of client contact lists and security protocols. Most concerning, he's been in communication with individuals who have previously been flagged for potential industrial espionage. I stared at the documents. Are you saying he's actually stealing classified information? We're saying he's engaged in activities that violate his security clearance and potentially federal law. Whether he's acting alone or as part of a larger operation is still under investigation. Ms. Chen leaned forward. What we need from you is a complete accounting of any attempts your wife may have made to access your work materials, your computer systems, or information about your previous employment. I told them about the copied files, the questions about my old job, the unusual interest in my home network setup. As I talked, Agent Rodriguez made notes and occasionally asked for clarification. Mr. Kelran, we're going to need to examine your home computer systems. We'll also need you to avoid alerting your wife to this investigation until we've completed our initial findings. How long will that take? Days, not weeks. But during that time, Mr. Price will be suspended from his position and his clearance will be revoked pending the outcome of our investigation. I thought about what that meant for Aaron's relationship with my wife. A man who'd just lost his job and his security clearance was probably not going to seem as attractive to someone who'd been drawn to his success and stability. There's one more thing, Detective Williams added. We'll need you to maintain normal contact with your wife for the next few days. If she suspects we're investigating her boyfriend, she might destroy evidence or flee. You want me to pretend everything is normal? We want you to give us time to build a case. Can you do that? I nodded, though the idea of pretending ignorance for even a few more days made my stomach turn. After leaving Meridian, I drove to my real job, the one that paid my mortgage and kept me grounded in reality. I had 3 service calls scheduled: a dental practice with network connectivity issues, a law firm with email problems, and a small manufacturing company whose server had crashed over the weekend. Normal problems with normal solutions. It was exactly what I needed. At the dental practice, I crawled under desks and traced cable connections while the office manager complained about their internet speed. Simple, fixable problems that didn't involve betrayal or federal investigations. You're quieter than usual today, said Dr. Peterson, the practice owner. I'd been maintaining their systems for 3 years, and he'd gotten used to my tendency to chat while I worked. Just thinking through some personal stuff, I said, testing a network connection. Wife troubles? I looked up at him, surprised by his directness. That obvious? I've been married 32 years. I recognized the look. He sat down in his desk chair. Want some unsolicited advice from someone who's survived 3 decades of matrimony? Sure. Whatever she's done, don't make decisions when you're angry. Anger makes you stupid. Take time to think, plan your moves, and remember that revenge feels good in the moment, but regret lasts forever. What if she's the one who chose revenge first? Dr. Peterson was quiet for a moment. Then you make sure you're better at it than she is. My phone buzzed with a text from Talia. Coming home tonight. Can we talk? I miss you. I stared at the message, thinking about the photographs of her kissing Aaron in a hotel parking garage less than 24 hours earlier. Everything okay? Dr. Peterson asked. Yeah, I said, putting my phone away. Just my wife missing me. I finished the dental practice job and moved on to the law firm, where their email server had decided to corrupt its database overnight. It was the kind of problem that would take hours to fix properly, which gave me time to think. Talia was coming home tonight, probably because Aaron was now dealing with the fallout from losing his job and his security clearance. She'd want to gauge my suspicions, maybe start laying groundwork for her planned accusations about my mental state. I needed to be ready for her. My phone rang while I was rebuilding the email database, Ms. Velasquez's office. Mr. Kelran, I have an update on your situation. Can you talk? Give me a minute. I stepped into an empty conference room and closed the door. What's the update? Our investigator has been busy. We have documented proof of the affair, including hotel records, restaurant receipts, and photographic evidence. We also have something more interesting. What's that? Your wife has been meeting with a divorce attorney for the past month. She's already filed preliminary paperwork, but hasn't served you yet. She's waiting for something. Waiting for what? Based on the timeline, probably waiting to establish paternity and finalize her strategy for the custody battle. But here's the interesting part. She's made several statements to her attorney that could constitute perjury if she repeats them under oath. What kind of statements? Claims about your mental health, your employment history, and your behavior toward her, all of which are contradicted by evidence we've already gathered. I felt a cold satisfaction settling in my chest. Talia thought she was playing chess while I played checkers, but she'd made a crucial mistake. She'd assumed I was too trusting and too passive to fight back effectively. What's our next move? We let her make the first official move, then we respond with overwhelming force. But I need you to do something tonight. What? When she comes home, I need you to record your conversation. Ohio is a one-party consent state, which means you can legally record any conversation you're part of. If she makes accusations about your behavior or mental state, we'll have evidence of her lies. Won't that seem suspicious? Not if you do it right. Keep your phone in your pocket with a recording app running. Act natural, but try to get her to repeat some of the claims she's been making to her lawyer. After finishing the law firm job, I drove to an electronics store and bought a small digital recorder with a clip-on microphone. If I was going to war with my wife, I was going to be properly equipped. Talia's car was in the driveway when I got home at 6:30 p.m. She was in the kitchen, cooking dinner, something she hadn't done in months. "Hey," she said, turning to smile at me. "I made your favorite, chicken parmesan." She was dressed nicely, wearing the blue dress I'd bought her for her birthday last year. Her hair was styled, her makeup perfect. She looked like the woman I'd married 7 years ago, before ambition and resentment had hardened her edges. "Smells great," I said, activating the recording app on my phone before setting it on the counter. "How's Mira doing?" "Better. She's been struggling with some personal stuff, but I think she's working through it." Talia moved around the kitchen with practiced efficiency, playing the role of devoted wife. "I'm sorry I've been distant lately. Work has been so stressful." "The Aaron Price situation?" She paused for just a moment, so briefly I might have missed it if I hadn't been watching carefully. "What Aaron Price situation?" "You mentioned he was causing problems at work, getting the good accounts, making things difficult for everyone else." "Oh, right. Yes, he's been challenging to work with." She turned back to the stove. "But I don't want to talk about work tonight. I want to talk about us." We sat down to dinner, and Talia launched into what felt like a rehearsed speech about our relationship, our future, and her concerns about my recent behavior. "I feel like you've been suspicious of me lately," she said, cutting her chicken into precise pieces. "Always asking where I've been, checking up on me. It makes me feel like you don't trust me." "Should I trust you?" "Of course you should trust me. I'm your wife." She reached across the table to touch my hand. "But Silas, I'm worried about you. You've been different these past few months. More paranoid, more isolated. I think you might be depressed." "What makes you think that?" "The way you've been obsessing over my schedule. The questions about my work trips. The fact that you've been going through my things when I'm not home." I hadn't been going through her things, but I didn't correct her. This was clearly part of her planned narrative. "Maybe I should talk to someone," I said, playing along. "I think that would be good. I've already researched some therapists who specialize in depression and anxiety. I think professional help could really benefit you." Professional help that would create a paper trail supporting her claims about my mental state. It was actually a clever strategy. "What if I don't want therapy?" Talia's expression shifted slightly, becoming more serious. "Silas, I need you to understand something. I can't keep living like this. If you don't get help, I'm going to have to consider other options." "What kind of other options?" "I love you, but I have to protect myself. If your behavior continues to deteriorate, I might need to take a break from our marriage." There it was. The threat, delivered with just the right amount of reluctance and concern. She was positioning herself as the long-suffering wife, forced to consider divorce only as a last resort to protect herself from my deteriorating mental health. "I don't want to lose you," I said. "Then get help. Promise me you'll call one of those therapists tomorrow." "I promise." She smiled and squeezed my hand. "I knew you'd be reasonable. That's one of the things I've always loved about you." After dinner, we watched television together on the couch. Talia curled up against me, playing the affectionate wife, but I noticed she kept checking her phone, and twice she excused herself to go to the bathroom, probably to text Aaron about how the conversation had gone. At 10 p.m., she announced she was tired and went upstairs to bed. I stayed downstairs for another hour, listening to the recording of our dinner conversation and making notes about every lie she'd told. Tomorrow, I would start dismantling the life she'd built on those lies. But tonight, I let her believe she was winning. I woke up at 5 a.m. to find Talia's side of the bed empty. The shower was running, and I could hear her moving around in the bathroom with the kind of purposeful energy that meant she had somewhere important to be. By 5:30, she was dressed in her best suit and heading for the door. "Early meeting," she explained, kissing my cheek. "Don't wait up tonight. It might run late." I knew exactly what kind of meeting she was attending. Aaron had lost his job yesterday, and they needed to figure out their next move. What they didn't know was that I was about to make my first real move in this war. At 8 a.m., I was sitting in Ms. Velasquez's office with a manila folder full of evidence. "The recording is excellent," she said, reviewing the transcript her assistant had prepared. "She's essentially admitting to building a false narrative about your mental health. Combined with the evidence of her affair, this gives us significant leverage. What's the plan?" "We serve her today. Divorce papers, temporary restraining order preventing her from accessing your joint accounts, and a motion for emergency custody determination regarding the pregnancy." "Can we do that? Demand custody of a child that might not be mine?" "We can demand paternity testing and temporary restrictions on her ability to make unilateral decisions about the pregnancy. Given her documented deception and the questionable paternity, a judge will likely grant our request." Ms. Velasquez slid a set of documents across her desk. "These need to be served to her personally, preferably at her workplace. Our process server will handle that at 10 a.m. today." "What happens after she's served?" "She'll panic. She'll call her lawyer, probably try to contact you, maybe attempt to access your joint accounts, but she'll find that we've already frozen everything pending the divorce proceeding." "And Aaron?" "That's where things get interesting. Our investigator discovered something about Mr. Price that your wife probably doesn't know." Ms. Velasquez opened another folder. "Aaron Price is married, separated but not divorced. His estranged wife, Jennifer, lives in Columbus with their 2 children. She's been trying to get him to sign divorce papers for 8 months, but he's been stalling. Why? Because he owes significant child support and alimony. A divorce would formalize those obligations and potentially result in wage garnishment. As long as he remains technically married, he can avoid some of the financial consequences." I stared at the documents. "So he's been lying to Talia about his marital status?" "It appears so. Jennifer Price has been quite cooperative with our investigator. She's very interested in any information that might help her finalize her own divorce proceedings." "What kind of information?" "Evidence of adultery for starters, but also evidence of hidden income, undisclosed assets, and anything else that might impact their financial settlement." Ms. Velasquez smiled, and for the first time since this whole situation began, I felt like I might actually win. "We're going to destroy both of them, aren't we? We're going to let them destroy each other. We're just going to provide the ammunition." At 10:15 a.m., my phone started buzzing. Talia, calling from work. I let it go to voicemail. She called again at 10:17, then 10:19, then 10:22. By 10:30, I had 6 missed calls and 3 increasingly frantic text messages. "Silas, call me immediately. Something terrible has happened. I need to talk to you right now. This is urgent. Where are you? Answer your phone." I was at my regular Tuesday job, a small accounting firm whose server needed routine maintenance. I'd deliberately chosen to be somewhere with witnesses when Talia received the divorce papers. At 11 a.m., she called again. This time I answered. Silas, oh, thank God. I've been trying to reach you for an hour. Sorry, I was working. What's wrong? Someone served me with legal papers at work. Divorce papers. They're claiming I'm having an affair, that I'm mentally unstable, all kinds of horrible things. Her voice was shaking, but I couldn't tell if it was from genuine emotion or calculated performance. What? That's impossible. I didn't file for divorce. The papers have your name on them. They're from some lawyer named Velasquez. Silas, what is happening? I have no idea. Let me call you back in a few minutes, okay? I need to figure out what's going on. Silas, wait. I hung up and immediately called Ms. Velasquez. She's been served, I reported. Excellent. How did she sound? Panicked, confused. She's trying to maintain the fiction that she's innocent. That won't last long. Our investigator is about to make contact with Aaron Price. Things are going to escalate quickly from here. I spent the rest of the morning pretending to work while monitoring the fallout. Talia called 4 more times, each conversation more desperate than the last. She wanted to meet for lunch, wanted to come home immediately, wanted to know why I was doing this to her. I played confused and supportive, promising to sort everything out with my lawyer, suggesting that someone might have filed false papers using my name. At 1 p.m., Ms. Velasquez called with an update. Aaron Price has been served with a subpoena to provide testimony in your divorce case. He's also been contacted by his wife's attorney regarding new evidence in their divorce proceeding. And here's the interesting part. His employer has decided to terminate his employment rather than deal with the security investigation. So he's lost his job? As of this morning, no severance, no benefits, and a notation in his personnel file that will make him essentially unemployed and employable in his field. I felt a surge of satisfaction. Aaron had helped my wife plan to destroy my life. Now his own life was falling apart. What about Talia? She's been calling her lawyer every 30 minutes. They're scrambling to figure out how we obtained so much evidence so quickly. They're also dealing with the frozen bank accounts and the emergency custody motion. When is the custody hearing? Thursday morning. We'll be asking for immediate paternity testing and temporary restrictions on her decision-making regarding the pregnancy. That evening, Talia came home in a state of barely controlled hysteria. She'd been crying. Her makeup was smudged, her hair disheveled, her professional composure completely shattered. Silas, we need to talk. Right now. I was ready for her. The recording app was running, and I'd prepared for every possible approach she might take. She chose the full confession strategy. Okay, yes, I've been seeing Aaron, but it's not what you think. It's been over for weeks. I was trying to figure out how to end it without destroying his career or his family. His family? He's going through a difficult divorce. I was trying to be supportive, but things got complicated. I never meant for it to become what it became. How long? A few months, maybe 6. But Silas, I love you. I want to save our marriage. This whole legal thing is insane. We can work this out ourselves. What about the pregnancy? She froze. What pregnancy? The one mentioned in the divorce papers. Are you pregnant, Talia? How did you... Who told you that? Are you pregnant with Aaron's child? She started crying then. Real tears, not the calculated emotion she'd been using for months. I don't know whose child it is. The timing? It could be yours. It could be his. I was going to get a paternity test, but then everything happened so fast. Were you planning to tell me? Yes. Eventually. I was trying to figure out the right way. The right way to tell me you're pregnant with another man's child. The right way to tell you that our marriage is over, but that I want us to stay friends, to co-parent together, to not destroy each other. I stared at her. Even now, caught in the middle of the most elaborate deception I could imagine, she was still trying to control the narrative. Friends? I said. You want us to be friends? I know you're angry. I know I've hurt you. But Silas, if we fight each other in court, we'll both lose everything. The lawyers will get rich, and we'll destroy our lives. What are you proposing? Let me move out. We'll separate quietly, get divorced amicably. I'll take responsibility for the baby regardless of paternity. You keep the house, I'll keep my retirement accounts. We split everything else 50-50. It was actually a reasonable offer. If I'd been the man she thought I was, passive, trusting, eager to avoid conflict, I might have taken it. But I wasn't that man anymore. I need time to think about it, I said. How much time? A few days. This is a lot to process. She nodded, wiping her eyes. I'll stay at Mira's tonight. Give you space to think. Talia? Yes? Don't lie to me anymore, about anything. If we're going to work something out, I need complete honesty from here on. I promise. No more lies. She packed a bag and left 20 minutes later. As soon as her car disappeared down the street, I called Ms. Velasquez. She offered to settle, I reported. What did you tell her? That I'd think about it. Good. Let her believe she might be able to negotiate her way out of this. Meanwhile, we'll be preparing for war. What's next? Tomorrow, we release the evidence of Aaron's marriage to his wife's attorney and to Talia simultaneously. Let them figure out how to explain that to each other. And then we watch them turn on each other. Nothing destroys a conspiracy faster than mutual betrayal. I hung up and sat in my empty house, listening to the silence. For the first time in months, I felt like I could breathe freely. The war was just beginning, but I was finally fighting back. Wednesday morning brought the kind of autumn rain that makes Cleveland feel like the edge of the world. I was drinking coffee and reading emails when my phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. This is Jennifer Price, Aaron's wife. Can we meet? I have information you need. I stared at the message for a full minute before responding. When and where? Starbucks on Cedar Road. 1 hour. Jennifer Price was not what I'd expected. She was tall, athletic, with short blonde hair, and the kind of direct gaze that suggested she'd stopped taking anyone's nonsense a long time ago. She was already seated at a corner table when I arrived, nursing a large coffee and looking like she hadn't slept in days. You must be Silas, she said as I sat down. I've heard a lot about you. From Aaron? From my lawyer, and from the private investigator your attorney hired. She slid a manila folder across the table. I thought you should see these before they become public record. The folder contained financial documents, bank statements, and what appeared to be credit card records. Aaron has been funding his affair with your wife using money that should have been going to child support, Jennifer explained. Hotel rooms, expensive dinners, gifts. He spent almost $15,000 in the past 6 months. I flipped through the receipts. Jewelry purchases, weekend trips, charges at restaurants that cost more than I spent on groceries in a month. Why are you showing me this? Because I want him destroyed, completely and permanently. Jennifer's voice was calm, but her eyes were hard. He's been lying to me, lying to you, lying to your wife and lying to our children. He's told them he can't afford to take them to Disney World while spending $300 on champagne for his girlfriend. What do you want from me? I want you to make sure this affair becomes public knowledge. I want his reputation ruined, his career finished, his social circle aware of exactly what kind of man he is. My lawyer says he's already lost his job. That's just the beginning. I want him unemployable. I want him to lose his professional network, his social standing, everything that matters to him. She leaned forward. Your wife thinks she's been dating a successful, divorced professional who's going to leave his ex-wife and start a new life with her. She has no idea that he's broke, still married, and about to lose custody of his children due to financial irresponsibility. She doesn't know he's still married? According to the messages my investigator recovered, Aaron told her our divorce was finalized months ago. He's been promising her that they can be together openly as soon as his custody issues are resolved. I thought about Talia's confession the night before, her claims about wanting to end the affair to protect Aaron's family. She'd been lying even then, still trying to control the narrative. "What do you want me to do?" Jennifer smiled, and for the first time since I'd met her, she looked genuinely happy. "I want you to help me give them both exactly what they deserve." 2 hours later, I was back in Ms. Velasquez's office, planning what she called the nuclear option. Jennifer Price is willing to testify about Aaron's financial deception, his lies about the divorce, and his abandonment of his children, Ms. Velasquez explained. Combined with the evidence we already have, this gives us enough ammunition to destroy both of them publicly. What's the plan? We file an amended complaint that includes fraud charges against both Aaron and Talia. We also file for criminal charges related to the attempts to access your work materials, and we release everything to the media. The media? Your wife works for a prominent marketing firm. Aaron worked for a defense contractor. A story about adultery, security violations, and fraud involving government employees is exactly the kind of thing local news outlets love. Ms. Velasquez pulled out her phone and showed me a contact list. I have relationships with reporters at 3 local stations and the Plain Dealer. By tomorrow morning, this story will be front-page news. Won't that hurt me too? You're the victim in this story. The faithful husband who discovered his wife's elaborate deception and did his civic duty by reporting security violations. You'll come across as sympathetic. And Talia? Will be portrayed as a manipulative adulteress who helped her lover steal classified information and attempted to frame her husband as mentally unstable to cover her tracks. I thought about the woman I'd married 7 years ago, the ambitious marketing executive who'd charmed me with her intelligence and drive. That woman was about to become a cautionary tale in the Cleveland Plain Dealer. "Do it," I said. At 3 p.m., Aaron Price called me directly. "We need to talk," he said without preamble. "I don't think we have anything to discuss." "Look, I know you're angry. I understand why, but this legal thing is getting out of hand. We're all going to be destroyed if we don't find a way to work together." "Work together?" "Talia and I, what we had is over. It's been over for weeks. She's been trying to end it, but I was being selfish, not letting go. I take full responsibility for that." Even now, he was trying to manipulate the situation, painting himself as the reluctant lover and Talia as the one trying to do the right thing. "What do you want, Aaron?" "I want to make this right. I'll testify that the affair was entirely my fault, that I pursued her, that she tried to resist. I'll take responsibility for any security violations. I'll do whatever it takes to minimize the damage to everyone involved." "In exchange for what?" "In exchange for you dropping the fraud charges and keeping this out of the media. My kids don't deserve to see their father destroyed on the evening news. You should have thought about your kids before you spent their college fund on hotel rooms." There was a long pause. "What are you talking about?" "I'm talking about the $15,000 you've spent on this affair while telling your children you can't afford to take them on vacation." Another pause, longer this time. "Who told you that?" "Your wife. Your actual wife, not my wife. Jennifer and I had coffee this morning." "Jennifer doesn't understand the situation. The money I spent, it's complicated." "It's really not complicated, Aaron. You stole money from your children to fund an affair with my wife. Now you're all going to face the consequences." "Silas, please, I'm begging you. I'll do anything to keep this quiet." "There's nothing you can do. It's too late." I hung up and immediately called Ms. Velasquez to report the conversation. "He's panicking," she said. "That means he knows how bad this is going to get. Have you heard from Talia today?" "Not since last night." "You will, probably within the hour. Aaron's going to tell her about his conversation with you, and she's going to realize that her strategy of playing victim isn't going to work." Ms. Velasquez was right. Talia called at 4:30 p.m., and she was furious. "What the hell do you think you're doing?" she demanded without preamble. I'm protecting myself from your lies. My lies? You're the one who hired private investigators to spy on me, who's been recording our conversations, who's trying to destroy my career and my reputation. I'm trying to prevent you from destroying mine. I never tried to destroy anything. I made a mistake, I admitted it, I offered to make it right. But instead of being reasonable, you've decided to turn this into some kind of war. You turned it into a war when you started planning to frame me as mentally unstable to steal custody of a child that probably isn't even mine. That's not... I never... Who told you that? Your own messages, Talia. Your own words, documented and time-stamped. She was quiet for a long moment. When she spoke again, her voice was different. Colder. More calculating. Okay. You want to fight? We'll fight. But you're not going to like how this ends, Silas. I know things about you that could ruin your life just as easily as you think you're ruining mine. What things? Things about your previous job. Things about why you really left Blackstone Defense. Things about the real reason you can't get security clearance anymore. My chest went cold. What are you talking about? I'm talking about the incident in 2019, the one you've never told me about, the one that's buried in your personnel file, but not buried deep enough. She was bluffing. She had to be bluffing. I don't know what you think you know. I know about the security violation. I know about the reprimand. I know about the real reason you switched to civilian IT work. Her voice was triumphant now. Did you really think I wouldn't investigate my own husband when I was planning my exit strategy? The line went quiet. I could hear my own heartbeat in my ears. Here's what's going to happen, Talia continued. You're going to drop all the charges, call off your lawyer, and agree to a quiet, amicable divorce. In exchange, I won't share what I know about your past with your current clients, your professional network, or the federal investigators who are apparently so interested in security violations. Talia, you have 24 hours to decide. After that, we both get destroyed, but at least I'll have the satisfaction of taking you down with me. She hung up, leaving me sitting in my kitchen, staring at my phone, wondering if I'd just lost the war before the final battle had even begun. I didn't sleep Wednesday night. Instead, I sat at my kitchen table with a bottle of whiskey and a box of documents from my previous job, trying to figure out what Talia thought she knew about my past. The incident in 2019 had been minor, a routine security audit that revealed I'd been using a work computer for personal email. It resulted in a written reprimand and additional security training, nothing more. It certainly wasn't the career-ending scandal Talia was trying to make it sound like. But she was right about one thing. I'd never told her about it. It had happened during a rough patch in our marriage, and I hadn't wanted to give her another reason to question my professional competence. At 6 a.m., I called Ms. Velasquez. She's bluffing, my lawyer said after I explained Talia's threat. Even if there was something significant in your employment history, she's already committed adultery, fraud, and conspiracy. She's not in a position to make demands. What if she's not bluffing? Then we deal with whatever she has. But Silas, you need to understand something. We're past the point of no return. The story breaks this morning. By noon, every news outlet in Cleveland will be covering this case. Can we stop it? Do you want to stop it? I thought about everything Talia had done. The affair, the lies, the planned custody battle, the attempts to paint me as mentally unstable. I thought about Aaron Price, spending his children's money on hotel rooms and expensive dinners. I thought about the months of manipulation and deception. No, I said, let it burn. The first news alert hit my phone at 8:47 a.m. Local marketing executive accused of affair with defense contractor employee. By 9 a.m., the story was trending on local social media. By 10 a.m., reporters were calling my phone. By 11 a.m., news vans were parked outside Talia's office building. I watched the coverage from my living room, feeling a mixture of satisfaction and nausea. The story was everything Ms. Velasquez had promised. I was portrayed as the faithful husband who'd discovered his wife's elaborate deception, while Talia and Aaron were painted as conspirators who'd violated security protocols and betrayed their families. The details were devastating. Aaron's lies about his marital status, the money he'd stolen from his children, Talia's plans to frame me as mentally unstable, the attempts to access classified materials, the fake pregnancy timeline designed to maximize her divorce settlement. At noon, my phone rang. Mira. Silas, what have you done? I've told the truth. The truth? You've destroyed my sister's life. She's been fired from her job. Her picture is on the front page of the newspaper. Reporters are camping outside her apartment. This isn't justice, it's revenge. She chose this path when she decided to betray our marriage and frame me as an unfit husband. She made mistakes, yes. But this is nuclear warfare. You've made sure she'll never work in this city again. Good. Mira was quiet for a long moment. I helped you because I thought you deserved the truth. I didn't help you so you could destroy her completely. Mira, she was going to take everything from me. My house, my reputation, custody of a child that isn't even mine. She was going to paint me as mentally unstable and dangerous. This isn't revenge, it's self-defense. And Aaron, what about his children? They're going to grow up knowing their father was publicly humiliated and destroyed. Is that self-defense too? I didn't have a good answer for that. At 2 p.m., Talia called. Congratulations, she said. Her voice was eerily calm. You've won. I hope it was worth it. Where are you? Packing. I'm leaving Cleveland. There's nothing left for me here. What about the baby? What baby, Silas? I lost the pregnancy yesterday. Stress, the doctor said. Too much stress. I felt like I'd been punched in the stomach. Talia, I'm sorry, I didn't know. Of course you didn't know. You were too busy planning my destruction to notice that your wife was having a miscarriage. If you'd just been honest from the beginning. If I'd been honest, you would have divorced me quietly and moved on with your life. Instead, you decided to make me into a cautionary tale. Well, congratulations. You've succeeded. The line was quiet for a moment. You want to know the truth about your security violation? She asked. Talia, there was no violation. I made it up. I hired a private investigator to look into your background, hoping to find something I could use as leverage. When he came back with nothing, I decided to bluff. You lied about having evidence against me? I lied about a lot of things, Silas. That's what people do when they're desperate. But you took my lies and turned them into a public execution. You made sure I'd never be able to start over, never be able to rebuild. You could have told the truth at any point. You could have ended this. Could I? Once you hired that lawyer, once you started gathering evidence, was there any point where you would have accepted anything less than total victory? I thought about it honestly. No, probably not. Then we both got what we deserved. The call ended, and I sat in my empty house, listening to the silence. Outside, a news van was still parked across the street, waiting to see if there would be any more developments in the story. At 6 p.m., I watched the evening news coverage. The anchor described it as a cautionary tale about deception in the digital age. They interviewed Jennifer Price, who spoke eloquently about the importance of holding people accountable for their actions. They showed file footage of Meridian Defense Systems and discussed the ongoing federal investigation into security violations. They did not interview Talia or Aaron. Both had declined to comment. At 8 p.m., Ms. Velasquez called with a final update. Aaron Price has agreed to plead guilty to security violations in exchange for avoiding federal charges. He'll serve 6 months in county jail and pay restitution. Talia has agreed to sign an uncontested divorce decree and waive any claim to marital assets. It's over, Silas. You've won. Have I? You've protected yourself, preserved your assets, and ensured that the people who tried to destroy you have faced consequences for their actions. Yes, you've won. After hanging up, I walked through my house now, officially and permanently. 3 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms, a kitchen where my wife had cooked dinner and lied to my face about her lover, a living room where we'd watch television while she texted another man. I'd won, but it didn't feel like victory. It felt like survival. At 10 p.m., there was a knock at my door. I opened it to find Mira standing on my porch, holding a bottle of wine and looking exhausted. "Can I come in?" I stepped aside and let her enter. "I came to apologize," she said, "and to say goodbye." "Goodbye?" "I'm moving to Columbus. I got a job offer at Ohio State's medical center. Better pay, better hours, and far enough away from this mess to start over." We sat in my living room, sharing the wine and not talking about the elephant in the room. "Do you regret it?" she asked finally. "Which part?" "Any of it. All of it." I thought about the question seriously. I regret that it came to this. I regret that Talia felt she had to lie and manipulate instead of just asking for a divorce. I regret that Aaron's children are going to suffer for their father's choices. But do I regret protecting myself? No. Mira nodded. "She asked me to tell you something." "What?" "She said to tell you that she did love you once, before everything got complicated, before ambition and resentment and fear turned her into someone she didn't recognize." "Did she really say that?" "She did. And Silas? I think she meant it." Mira finished her wine and stood to leave. At the door, she turned back. "Take care of yourself, and maybe consider that winning isn't always the same thing as being happy." After she left, I sat alone in my house, thinking about the past year, the suspicions, the investigation, the revelations, the war that had consumed everything in its path. I'd started this journey as a man who suspected his wife of cheating. I was ending it as a man who'd systematically destroyed the lives of everyone who'd betrayed him. Outside, the news van finally drove away, its story complete. The neighbors' lights went out one by one, and the street returned to its normal suburban quiet. I poured myself another drink and sat in the darkness, surrounded by the wreckage of my marriage and the victory I'd fought so hard to achieve. Tomorrow, I would start rebuilding. Tonight, I would sit with the silence and try to figure out what came next for a man who'd won everything and lost everything at the same time. The war was over. I had won. But as I sat in my empty house, listening to the rain against the windows, I couldn't shake the feeling that victory had come at a price I was only beginning to understand.